What is going on, Renation? How are you guys doing? So we're gonna be reacting to this video called, what's it called? The film theory, the reason why Wolverine is dying, Logan. Now I already seen Logan the movie, and I've already said how I felt about it because I was doing a reaction to the King Batch, parody trailer. I love Logan. It was a great movie. There's a lot of key points that's gonna make you cry, but I don't know if there's any part of this video. If this video does have spoilers, I will let you know it. I don't know. I guess I'll let you know at the end, or I'll say in the comments down below, so you guys, just be careful. So if you haven't hit that like button on this video, subscribe to the channel as well. Let's see, what's the real reason why Wolverine's dying. I know it because he was old, but there probably is more to it. Let's get it.
In Logan, our titular hero is lost a step or two. He's grizzled, he's hardened, and at 140 years old, he now faces his most formidable challenge yet. Figuring out a smartphone. Seriously, this guy fought in World War I. You know that every selfie he's taken has his thumb in it, and that he sent Cyclops like 3,000 notifications from Farmville.
Such a great theme song, bruh. I used to love that TV show. Bruh. Man, this theme song, like this intro.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Film Theory, the show that mixes science with superheroes and only gets better with age. You know what else only gets better with age? Wolverine, apparently, because Logan is great. It wasn't just a good superhero movie, it was a good movie that features superheroes. You should absolutely go see it, both for that reason and because this episode is chock full of minor spoilers. You've been warned, enter at your own risk. Alright, so now let's talk about what really struck me about Logan. He's older, he's weaker, and his healing factor is both slower and less powerful than it's historically been. The explanation that Logan gives us in the movie is that his adamantium skeleton is poisoning him. And though I really like the movie, something about that explanation for his sudden old manification didn't just add up for me. I mean, why now? Why wouldn't the all-powerful Wolverine have seen any side effects from his adamantium skeleton for decades, only to just now find that it's so deadly? So I rolled up my sleeves, did some research, and most importantly, asked my partner Stephanie, who has a background in medical science, to explain all the big sciencey words to me, and I've come to a conclusion. Simply put, Logan is wrong. I mean, yes, he's getting older and his body is breaking down, but it's not because of the adamantium, and we can prove it
with science.
First, it's important to set a few things straight for those of you who aren't rabid MCU aficionados or who just always liked Charles better, thought that Logan was a bit too mainstream. I mean, seriously, every X-Men movie just shoehorns him in somehow, even though it makes no sense. I'm looking at you, X-Men Apocalypse. It's important to distinguish Logan's mutation from Logan's fancy adamantium implants. Mutants have a lot of superpowers that morph parts of their body, but Logan's genetic mutations only involve some of what you've seen on screen. Genetically, his actual X-Men powers are his feral senses, his ultra healing abilities, and 6 bone claws that are found in his hands. The adamantium that he's so famous for and that's supposedly poisoning him in this movie is just an add-on that he received in a lab back in the 1970s, an event that we see in his traumatic backstory in other films. That's important to remember because with Logan, we're dealing both with natural DNA mutations and man-made modifications that make a heart transplant look like a walk in the park. And you could see why he'd think the adamantium is his problem, right? I mean, it would kill most people, and he probably went on to WebMD and was like, adamantium poisoning. Yeah, that's gotta be it, bub. By the way, have you ever been to WebMD and tried to diagnose your own stomachache or something? No one comes out of there with some simple solution like, hey, that corn dog made me gassy. No, you come out of there diagnosing yourself with parasitic worms and stomach cancer and irritable bowel syndrome.
Yeah.
No? Just me? That just me?
Probably just you, but...
Fine. And since Logan is so sure that he has adamantium poisoning, in the movie, he won't even let a doctor diagnose him. So let's at least see if that's plausible scientifically. The short answer there is surprisingly yes. Many studies have shown that in regular human anatomy, metal implants can cause big problems for people, especially over time as people start to get older. Hip implants, cranial plates in people's heads, even your dental implants become slowly corroded over time, even though we don't think of this usual stuff in our bodies as being particularly reactive. At a molecular level, metal, our own body's water and oxygen slowly oxidize the surface of the metal. And if you've ever looked at a bike left out in the rain or the Statue of Liberty, you know that metal doesn't like water plus oxygen because it leads to stuff like rust. Now imagine that in your body, where those oxidized metal molecules break off and do all kinds of weird stuff, like keep your bones from absorbing calcium or mess up the electrical currents in your heart. Even though modern medicine makes implants as stable as possible, there's metal corrosion across every type of metal: stainless steel, cobalt, even titanium implants. So it's definitely possible that adamantium could have the same effects, especially in someone who's had implants as long as Logan and who has had an entire skeleton's worth of the stuff. I mean, seriously, he is putting Grandpa's knee replacement to shame. So then it's adamantium poisoning, right? What are we even doing here? Because adamantium poisoning isn't even close to the whole story. First of all, we would have no explanation for the timing of Logan's decay. Why now, after 100+ years? If adamantium had been slowly poisoning him over time, you would think that you'd see something about it somewhere in the movies before this, even if there is a gap in the timeline between this one and the last one. But I already hear you making a very plausible argument. No, we wouldn't have seen adamantium poisoning before this because of Logan's healing factor. Logan's healing factor would have covered it up and we would have never known. And you know what? Your argument is totally right. Up to this movie, Logan's healing factor would have been powering full blast to make sure that any negative effects of metal poisoning would heal immediately. That's the reason why Logan is the only character to have an adamantium skeleton. Other test subjects died, but the healing factor kept Logan alive. But in this movie, that's no longer happening. We're seeing everything hurting Logan, from gunshots to broken glass to even the adamantium in his own body. But that means it's not the adamantium poisoning that's killing him, it's the loss of his healing factor. His genetically given superpower is going away and just uncovering all the other problems that he's had the whole time. And this is where Logan is wrong about what's killing him.
You're right. Okay.
So Logan's healing power is gone. But how does a member of the X-Men lose their abilities? It's genetic. It is literally in every single cell of their body. Most of them can't even choose to turn it off if they want to, like Rogue and Cyclops. Well, if we want to understand why Logan's healing factor is no longer fully functional, we first need to understand how your own genes can change over time. It's easy to think that you have the same genes from the day you're born to the day that you die, but that's just a clever ruse that our biology teachers have been telling us to get more snack time in the teacher's lounge. Remove the wool from your eyes, internet, and you find that as you age, your genes are actually changing all the time. Mutations in your genes happen randomly, about 1 × 10⁻⁻⁻ time per base pair. In real terms, that means that your whole genome, all the genes in one cell, that's about 0.32 mutations every time your cells divide, or about 1 change to the genome sequence for every 3 divisions. And if that doesn't seem like a lot, consider this. In adults, about 50 million cells die each day, and all of them need to be replaced. And you can imagine for Logan, that number is going to be a whole lot bigger every time he catches a machine gun worth of bullets with his face. And for how big your genome is, honestly, that number of mistakes ain't too shabby. The good news is that most of these mutations are silent. They don't seem to have an effect on anything, at least not by themselves. Occasionally, you get a mutation that does something really cool. If you're in a Marvel movie, it gives you ice breath, or lasers that shoot out of your eyes, hence the reason the whole X-Men universe exists at all. But those kinds of genetic changes, even in the X-Men universe, are really rare. The genetic changes that are more common, and what's actually happening in Logan, include something that's called cell senescence. You know when they say that someone's going senile, it means that they're going a little bit crazy when they get old? Well, senescence is like that for your genes. It's the same root word, so you can tell. Ha! This is a secret grammar episode too. Nerdy booyah! When you get older, your genes start to get a little wacky and develop a kinda short fuse. See, every time your cells divide, your chromosomes get all bundled up and pulled to their new little cell homes by things called telomeres. The telomeres look like little DNA lassos or strings, but they're actually just more DNA attached to the end of the chromosomes. If your chromosomes are like bumper cars, the telomeres are like the bumpers. They're big extra chunks of extraneous DNA at either end of the chromosome that buffer it in case anything bad happens. What if your cell accidentally doesn't copy the whole strand of DNA? It's okay, it just chopped off a chunk of the telomere and that DNA sequence didn't really matter anyway. These buffers also keep 2 chromosomes from sticking together so that your body doesn't do really weird stuff and you don't grow that awkward 3rd nipple halfway through puberty. You will not live that one down in gym class, my friends. The only problem, though, is that telomeres get shorter and shorter as you get older and older. Remember, those telomeres are taking all the hits for you in there, so over time, those buffers get used up after a certain number of replications called the Hayflick limit. And once those babies are gone, you start to have real problems. Now that the bumper car doesn't have any more bumpers to it, it starts to take damage. Every hit causes a dent, and eventually the chromosomes can no no longer replicate at all. That's when you start to see stuff like replication errors, bigger genetic mutations that actually start to mess up the way your body functions on a bigger scale. This is why even super marathon runners can't live forever, because no one's telomeres can stay long and strong for hundreds of years, and it turns out the same is true for Logan. While Logan is clearly able to do some astounding stuff, like replicate his cells super fast to heal wounds, pop bullets out of his own heart, and literally defy gravity with his hair, his healing factor is a DNA mutation, his X-Men mutation, which means it can only last as long as his DNA stays intact. But what happens when his cells divide too many times and his telomeres get too short to protect that DNA? Over time, those telomeres are taking a lot of hits, they break or they get copied wrong, and eventually they're not going to be able to protect the real DNA that matters. Now every time a cell divides, which let's face it is happening in Logan a lot because of all the healing he has to do, any mistakes that get made are getting made to real DNA. The DNA that's keeping him alive, the very DNA sequence that gives him his healing powers. For most people, when telomeres shorten, we start to see things like graying hair and arthritis. But for Logan, DNA damage to the sequence giving him his mutant healing means that he literally can't stop bullets anymore. Damage to his X-Men gene is giving him a death sentence. All of a sudden, fewer and fewer of his cells have the healing factor he needs to maintain his abilities. It doesn't happen all at once, which is why we see his power slowly ramp down instead of stopping altogether in the movie. His old functional cells are being replaced by new ones. New cells with a new mutation, a slightly altered DNA sequence that knocks out his super healing abilities. It also makes him susceptible to stuff like disease or other things that might be floating around in his body, like for instance 50 years of corroded adamantium that his healing factor has been covering up this whole time. So in the end here, what's most important is that it's not actually the adamantium that's killing Logan. He's been dealing with adamantium in his skeleton for literally decades and it never bothered him before. He's really dying because his own genes are breaking down and his X-Men mutation is being damaged.
This guy
one or two base pairs in that X-Men DNA sequence have been changed, mutated, so that it's no longer able to save him. In short, a DNA mutation gave Logan his powers, and now a mutation due to old age has taken them away. That means that in the end, the real thing that's killing Logan is irony.
Alright, so honestly, I'm gonna just give my opinion straight away about this situation. Now, at first, I thought it was because like he was getting poison in his body, but he couldn't he couldn't build himself. Like he couldn't regenerate. You know, he couldn't heal himself. His healing factor was gone. You know what I'm saying? And that does make plenty of sense. You know, because when he was trying to, because like if his healing factor is gone, of course the poison is gonna show. But if his healing factor was 100%, you wouldn't notice that the poison was there because his healing factor was always taking it away, you know what I'm saying? It was always covering it up, which makes perfect sense, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, you know, it's crazy. I actually, you know, like I said, I watched Logan. Movie was really good. It was different from any superhero movie I've seen. That's probably why it was really good, because it was something that was not, you know, it was something that I wasn't used to watching, like out of a superhero movie, like the stuff that was going on. But like I said, it was really good, and if you haven't seen the movie, you need to go see the movie now. This actually wasn't even a spoiler, so it's fine. So if you haven't, like I said, hit that like button on this video and subscribe to the channel as well. Let's get to 8,000 subscribers. I will see you guys in the next video I post. Renation Route. Deuces, baby. One love. Peace.